Welcome to the Trent Show. Thanks for watching this Wednesday. It is the middle of spring break, and we're going to talk mostly, but not exclusively, schools. Is that right? I'm looking at my show outline thinking, I think I've got a story in here that's not about education. Obviously, we've got to talk a lot about education. The threatened teacher fake strike, not even a walkout, is scheduled for 1 week and a half from right now. A week from Monday, April 2nd, is when the Oklahoma Education Association and some people are threatening to walk out. I keep hearing from people, you keep hearing the word on the ground, right? Rather than the media, rather than the OEA, the word on the ground is a lot of teachers are unhappy about, specifically about the OEA's demands. That's what I keep hearing, is people saying, look, yes, we'd love to get a raise, but what the OEA came out with is crazy, makes us look stupid. I've heard that at least once, and so there you go. Let's start with some good news, bad news in education in Oklahoma. Glenpool Public Schools gave teachers a raise. They gave them a bonus, $1,000 bonus, teachers and support staff in Glenpool Public School District. I mean, look, this takes us right back to the point we've been talking about it here and there on the show. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in a few minutes. That look, local school districts they write their own budgets. And sure, a lot of funds, state funds, federal funds, local funds, a lot of those funds have strings attached. One of the things that we do at the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs is try to work to get those strings first exposed and then to sever as many of those strings as we can. I mean, in ways that make sense, to put the authority and the accountability in local school districts so that it's not fake authority and so that voters can really hold school districts accountable. I want to talk about that a little bit more, but kudos to a school district like Glenpool. Cushing is the same way. I think I mentioned that the other day. Cushing actually just pays teachers more. They've given teachers bonuses. These are school districts that in their budgeting have prioritized teachers. Would they like more state money? Absolutely, they'd like more state money. Would it make it easier for them to prioritize teachers? Well, not really. Would it make it easier for them to pay teachers more? Yes. Would it change their priorities? Would it change a local school district's priorities? Of course not. Giving them more money doesn't change their priorities. It just makes it easier for them to fund things that they don't consider as important as, say, Bixby. Instead of giving Bixby teachers a bonus, Bixby decided to give their disgraced former school superintendent a bonus, right? So, I mean, this is the local school districts. They set their own budgets, they set their own priorities, and sometimes, as in Glenpool, they set the right ones. Bad news, Chickasha Public Schools, you've probably seen this, under criminal investigation for changing thousands of grades. Just a reminder, we hear these, at least I hear it. Do you hear it? The clamor. Every time we talk about school choice, you get these people out there saying, well, but you can't trust private schools because they're not governed by bureaucrats and politicians. Anyhow, sometimes even bureaucrats and politicians break the law. Isn't that surprising? Chickasha under criminal investigation, OSBI looking into it. I'm sure we'll talk about that story more as more details come to light. But I mean, look, it's not to say that things are perfect in the private sector. It's just crazy the kind of state idolatry that you get from some people who, wow, if we don't put all the power in the hands of bureaucrats and politicians, we just can't trust anybody else. I don't understand. Personally, I don't understand that kind of state idolatry, especially in a state like Oklahoma, but we still hear that chorus sometimes. Okay. The big story that caught my eye today is the story, and it's ran in the Oklahoma and ran in other outlets, about the Oklahoma State Department of Education, the state education bureaucracy. They don't educate any kids, but they get to call themselves an education bureaucracy because they pass through money to local school districts where eventually some of it winds up being spent on educating kids. Anyhow, the Oklahoma State Department of Education surveyed former teachers, people who have teaching certificates but who are not teaching in Oklahoma right now, and what did they find? Oh, well, it's not surprising what they found. They could have just come and asked. They should have just watched the show. They could have came and asked us. They could have watched the show. They could have got this information so much more easily. I don't know how much they spent on this survey. What did they find? They found that, do teachers care about pay? Yes, absolutely. Teachers care about pay. Is it the only thing teachers care about? No, not at all. I don't know, what was it, the end of last week? I gave my 5 things that we should do right now to help teachers, and one of the 5 was pay teachers more, but the others had to do with classroom management. And what came up in this survey as a big factor why teachers leave teaching in Oklahoma public schools is because of classroom management. Because they're not allowed to maintain order in their classrooms. They're not respected by school administrators, school district leaders. I mean, one of the things you always see when a survey like this comes out, I saw this in the comments on the Oklahoman story, people saying, well, it's because state legislators don't respect our teachers enough. Give me a break. Have these people ever walked into a classroom? The last thing on a teacher's mind, standing up there at the front of a classroom, trying to keep control of the classroom so that that teacher can actually educate kids, the last thing on that teacher's mind is the state legislature, and state legislators do not have power over what happens in that classroom. But if the school principal, vice principal, if the school district administration is not backing that teacher up, that's where you have problems. That's what OSDA found. But what they really wanted to talk about, if they admitted it in their press conference, well, it turns out actually a lot of teachers leave the profession because of what's going on in the classroom. But of course, what they wanted to talk about was money. And here's the other totally unsurprising thing they found about money, but this should inform our public policy debates in a way that I'm going to tell you in just a minute here. This is actually really important. They found that which teachers are most concerned about money? Younger teachers. Which teachers are less concerned about money? Older teachers. And it was funny, this just sort of gets put out there as, well, yeah, it's just that, isn't that interesting? The younger teachers make the least, right? I mean, this is common sense. Obviously, the teachers who make the starting salary, because we pay teachers not based on their performance, not based on excellence. We don't reward teachers for doing a good job. We only pay teachers for having little framed certificates of pieces of paper, right? You get a master's, you get a PhD, you get paid more money, or for how much time they've sat in a classroom. Right? So teachers who sat in classrooms less make less money. They're more concerned about pay because they're down at the entry level of that pay scale. This is important because we see 2 different conversations going on in the legislature and in the public. One is, let's give all teachers an across-the-board raise, whether it's $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. Let's give everybody a raise. If we're going to give teachers a raise, and I support giving teachers a raise, that's how we should do it. The other proposal is, let's give teachers a percentage raise, right? And there's another plan that's kicking around out there, and I think this is a terrible idea. This is a plan that tends to be supported by very senior teachers that says, let's give teachers the equivalent of a $5,000 pay raise, but let's do it as a percentage so that younger teachers get the least and older teachers get the most, so that, I mean, look, I'm going to sound like Bernie Sanders for just a minute, but I think in this case it is fully correct. This is a plan where the poor would get the least and the rich would get the most, right? I mean, teachers who've been in the classroom for a long time, right, they make quite a bit more already than junior teachers. If we want more teachers to go into the profession, what OSDA's survey shows is we need to bump up the pay for junior teachers, and frankly, if you bump up everybody's pay by $5,000 or any amount, the biggest percentage increase goes to junior teachers, right? They get, they get the same amount, but as a percentage of their salary, it's a much bigger bump. It's a much bigger bump, right? So whatever teacher pay raise gets passed by the legislature, I think it should be across the board. I do not think it should be based on a percentage. I do not think that we should give the teachers who already make the most the biggest pay bump. That's crazy, and OSDA's own numbers, Oklahoma State Department of Education's own survey, shows how wrong-headed and foolish that would be. Okay, what's the other thing that they found? Who cares the most about classroom management, what goes on in the classroom? It's the older teachers. And again, I mean, this is so simple. This is so obvious. I learned this just from talking to teachers. I guess, they had to pay a survey firm to go out and find this out. But look, younger teachers have more energy. We're averaging things out here, right? On average, younger teachers have more energy. Younger teachers have more optimism, perhaps. And frankly, if they can't deal with somewhat unruly classrooms, they're just going to leave the profession. People who've been around for a long time in teaching, who feel like they maybe have less other options, for whom pay is not as big of a concern, if you want to retain them, what they say in this survey is, let us control our classrooms. They're probably also the same teachers who have seen the greatest decline in support from administration and support, frankly, from parents as well. And so look, the OSDA's survey found a couple of common sense, simple things that hopefully will inform the public debate about teacher pay raises. I guess good for them. I would like to know how much they spent on the survey. I don't have that piece of information yet. Okay, I've also been talking, I mentioned this yesterday, we've talked about it before, talking about breaking down funding silos. I wanted to say something else about that here today as we head toward the end of the program, and that is this. Well, let me give you an example first. Let me do this. Florida, Manatee Public Schools, and Manatee Public Schools, got to be in Florida, right? It's in Bradenton, Florida, and they just passed a levy. This just popped up in my news feed. I thought, what a great example to share with folks. This popped up in my news feed. They were able to pass a levy specifically to increase pay for teachers and bus drivers because they feel like they need to be, in their own community, they need to be more competitive on salary with their surrounding districts, right? They have more of the kind of power that we've been talking about giving our districts here in Oklahoma. I just wanted to share that with you because I've told people in other states it works this way. A lot of other states it works this way. Oklahoma, as far as I can tell, is a little bit of an outlier in this regard. We should break down the silos. But I do get people saying, well, come on, this is obvious stuff. This is common sense. Who would oppose breaking down some of these silos so that we can spend money on the highest priorities? Who would be against that? I wanted to answer that question here today because I find that sometimes people just don't realize. We say, okay, we have this government school system. It's run by politicians and bureaucrats, and so therefore, they all have our best interest at heart. And there's no private profit motives. And schools, public schools, are big business, and I wanted to share that with you, especially construction. This is why the silos are so fiercely defended, because there are people out there who make their money based on the fact that schools wind up with all this money that they can only spend on buildings. Right? That they can only spend on building upgrades, that they can only spend on technology. And the best example of this is Oklahoma State School Board Association, OSSBA. They list their biggest donors on their website. Who are their biggest donors on the OSSBA website? Well, American Fidelity is on there. They have a sweetheart deal selling insurance through the school districts. But what's next? We've got architects. We've got, as you scroll down the list, we've got restoration company, we've got architects, we've got more architects. I mean, there are a lot of architects. We got more architects down here as I get down into the architects again, and then a construction company, and then architects. And I'm just going to keep going. We got architect, another company related to building, and then another construction company on there, and I think another architect as well. Public school buildings are big buildings. That's more than half, by the way. I counted it up. That's at least 13 of the 25 major sponsors listed by OSSBA. They make their money based on the funding silo that locks money away from teachers, right? And that is part of why they are so dead set on raising your taxes, because they know that if school districts are forced to live within existing resources, that might come and start eating into the funds that they use to go out and build luxury libraries and build press boxes on football stadiums and build all this superfluous, wasteful stuff at schools. They make a ton of money. Taxpayers get soaked. Taxpayers at the beginning feel like, well, we got to vote for this school bond because we're investing in education. Then, years later you realize, wait a second, they're blowing this money. They can't spend it on teachers. We're trying to change some of that here, and I just wanted to share with you who is on the other side. Okay, we've got to do Blue State Blues, and then I want to highlight a great column that I saw the other day on McCarville Report. But first of all, Blue State Blues here, California. For those who have told me, I still can't believe how many people I've had arguing with me on cost of living doesn't matter. This is the latest, CNBC from California. Californians fed up. Here's the headline: Californians fed up with housing costs and taxes are fleeing state in big numbers. Californians, this is not new. This is a trend that is continuing. People fleeing California. Why do they flee California? Because of the cost of living in California, right? Apparently the cost of living actually matters, and it kind of sucks to be in a blue state unless you're rich. Look, if you're Barbara Streisand, you can live in Malibu, California, and it's no big deal, right? Those folks can live there. If you're very, very poor and you can't move, or you've gotten affixed to the teat of the state of California, right, then you're stuck. This is why blue areas wind up with the highest wealth inequality, the highest income inequality, right? The poor can't move and oftentimes get co-opted. The rich run the place and they can pay the high cost of living, and the middle class hollows out and they have to flee. They are fleeing California. So there is our blue state blues for the day. Finally, I just wanted to share this column by Representative Jason Murphy in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. He just reminds us that, look, when you raise taxes, when you raise spending, that allows bureaucracies to continue to be wasteful. It makes it harder to root out waste, fraud, and abuse when you continue piling more money into the bureaucracies. This is why the Oklahoma State Department of Health and the Oklahoma Health Care Authority, both of which have gotten caught up in misspending money. Oklahoma Health Care Authority misspending some federal money, put us in a hole due to trying to keep our medical schools accredited here in Oklahoma. Oklahoma State Department of Health, we're still waiting for the criminal investigations to indicate just how deep the years and years of mismanagement went, but we know it goes back to about 2011. But look, both of those agencies were lobbying in the legislature for tax increases because they understood tax increases would take the pressure off, would allow them to continue their irresponsible and in some cases obviously illegal spending, right? And it's only by holding the line on the growth of government that you actually force those things to be exposed and potentially force those things to be dealt with and those problems to be solved. Good for Representative Jason Murphy for writing that up. It's at the McCarville Report. I'll share the link out in our show links. Thanks for watching the Trent England Show today. We've got another couple of great shows coming up for you the rest of this week. I hope you're having a great spring break. The weather is beautiful today, and it's supposed to be beautiful right on through the weekend. And, you know, we used to do this on radio, so I feel like every once in a while I should give a radio report, or I give a weather report. I'm not going to do the traffic, though. We are going to wrap it up there on the Trent England Show. Thank you for watching. Remember, you can subscribe on iTunes. You can subscribe at YouTube. You can find us and comment on Facebook. Love to hear from you on Facebook. That's kind of the place where I get to interact and read the comments the most and answer questions if you have any. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.